Sarah. We're glad you took the time to join us today. Dustin already told me a little bit about yourself. He showed me the footage you took, and yeah, if you don't mind, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I don't know. I'm a small town kind of person. So I came from Reeseville, Wisconsin, which is a small town. And, it's kind of funny because years ago, I heard that there was actually a sighting there of a UFO. And I was just a little kid. It was on a show called Sightings. So
Oh,
I've always been a little intrigued, but I haven't really thought about it in years. So I guess fast forward to now, I moved to a little town in Manitowoc County. Not in town, I live in the country, but this actually did not take place on my property. It was my neighbor Tom's. Hanging out with Tom, doing our Sunday thing, Sunday fun day. We're having some margaritas, and it's summertime, so nothing major. It's been storming all day, and we look up and there's these things flying around, and I started recording them with Snapchat, and it doesn't do like one continuous video. So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, why am I recording them? Because we kept kind of speculating, thinking maybe they were just birds. So I know, Dustin, you've heard the video with my neighbor swearing up a storm in the background, talking about cranes.
right.
And I just kept recording because I'm like, well, maybe just in case, whatever. And then as they started landing, one of those things is just, we started to notice, like, this is getting kind of weird because they're shiny. They're not birds. And he said, let's get the truck and go chase them. And then I thought he was serious, so I cut off the video then. But we didn't, which I don't know why we didn't, because all we really would have had to do is just drive down the road. It's hard to explain how it goes, but there's a road that's actually parallel with his road, and that appears to be kind of where they were at.
You know what the road names are?
So there's he's on Marsh Road. I don't know how much he's going to appreciate me telling this, but he's on Marsh Road. And then there's a road that's parallel called Woodcock Road. So I walk down there all the time. And I don't know, it's usually kind of where I walk my dog because I live down the perpendicular road. So I'm not too far off. So I'm only about a mile from his house. So what took place, that was between my house and his house. Legit, like there's just a field in between. Kind of interesting to see, I never thought I'd actually see anything quite like it. But even my boyfriend and I were sitting down yesterday and kind of going through looking at it, and yeah, he still is kind of like, yeah, I can't explain that, maybe if it was drones, but we don't know anybody in the area who has drones.
Sarah, describe those things you saw.
So they were white objects, and one thing I noticed about one is it was blinking, kind of. Just one little tiny one was blinking, and they were just kind of moving in unison. It was, like I said, just kind of, I guess, how you'd see a drone pattern going. But like I said, there's no drones. Nobody that I know has drones around there. We live in the middle of nowhere. So it's just kind of odd. Yeah, they were just kind of flying around. That's another thing, because some people brought up like the SpaceX things or whatever, but they were moving too fast. And then as they started landing, they were kind of hovering down. And then one kind of swooped in and then went down into the cornfield. And then we sat there. They never came back up. Waited, and then finally eventually got sick of waiting. So
really interesting.
How were they shaped? Like a triangle or a circle, or
more like a circle?
Yeah.
That's from what I could see. Yeah, I tried zooming in with my video camera, so the quality wasn't the greatest because how it is when you zoom in. But to me, it looked more like a circle, just white circle. One of them were blinking, almost like one was interacting. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't know if you guys zoomed in on the video. There's that one that kind of goes, and then the little blinky one kind of intersects with it.
Did you hear any sound?
Nothing. Absolutely no sound whatsoever. And that was kind of the part that got us. Like, you'd figure if it was like birds, maybe you'd hear them, or drones make a noise too. So
True.
At least I think most of them do. I know a place I used to live, a drone flew over and was like hovering in the air. And my friend and I were like, what's that noise? And we saw it, and then it left. But, so that was my neighbor screwing around on us. And my other neighbor at my last place. So not the same neighbor, Tom, that, swearing in the back of the video.
Do you have any information if other people saw it as well? Like people that you don't know?
So, I posted on Strange Wisconsin, and somebody said that they saw something similar. It wasn't the exact same day though. It was a different date. So I never really heard any more details about it. So I'm pretty sure I responded to him and asked.
Wisconsin is the treasure trove for modern day UFO sightings. And it's just, yeah, again, I was pretty blown away when I first saw the video. I was like, you need to contact me about that. I want to hear more about that. But yeah, that's pretty amazing and very compelling. Just the fact that those looked like they were just playing with each other and kind of disappearing. I was like, whoa, what the hell? That was pretty impressive.
Not too long ago, I came home from a trip here in Germany from Cologne to where I live, and I told Dustin this story that I saw lights in the sky, and they did, like, I don't know, playing with each other also. It's kind of the same thing, maybe. Yeah, crazy.
That's really interesting. So something very similar.
Yeah.
Because you would figure aircraft would really play with each other a ton. So that's the funny part, you know, because that's one thing that really kind of caught us at first. We're like, you know, I guess my thought process is like, what are they actually trying to do?
They weren't lights, like you see a star or something. They were. Did you have the
Tiny.
They were made of some kind of metal or something like that?
As they were coming down, because at first it looked like lights up in the sky, and then we're just like, okay, so maybe it's just white birds. And then as it started coming down, we started realizing, I mean, to the human eye, it's hard to see in the video, but we realized they were reflective. And you can hear my boyfriend saying in the background on that last video, he's like, they're reflective. I know one of us said it. I know we were all thinking it. We were discussing it later because, but he said birds aren't shiny.
Yeah, that's true.
That's exactly when it all hit us, that it wasn't birds.
And then the fact that they were disappearing too, like yeah,
right, like they're far enough up that, you know, they're kind of weaving in and out of the clouds a little bit. You know, I mean, granted, it's been stormy that day, so, you know, maybe we had some lower hanging clouds, but just something really off and kind of odd about it.
We had a guy named Nate. He was talking about the invisible highway and that there's like UFOs flying over our heads constantly. And we can just put our phones in slow motion mode and actually point to the sky and actually catch something. And like, he told me to go do it myself. And 2 different occasions, I caught something amazing, like this black ball flying in, slowing down, going zigzag into the sky and flying off. I'm like, oh shit. So I recommend people trying that. Maybe in the same area that you maybe saw those objects. Maybe you catch something again.
Is that something? So you just put it in slow motion and then like just sit it on a tripod and just kind of put it towards the sky?
That's correct. And he said cloudy days are the best because they like to weave in and out through the clouds.
Interestingly enough, I tried it myself and I catch something too. I don't know what it was, but it was strange. So I'm not saying it's a UFO, but it looked strange. But Sara, I want to know a little bit more about how they moved. Can you describe the movement a little bit better?
I guess the best thing I could say is fluid. You know, I mean, I really don't have any good adjectives to describe besides they kind of moved in unison. Like some of them, it was almost like, to me, it was like they're dancing.
Yeah.
I guess the best way I could put it.
Interesting.
And then as it came down, they just hovered, you know, they came down slowly. Like their speed wasn't the same through the entire thing.
You said they landed, right?
Correct, yes.
Did you actually see that they landed on the floor, or did you see them disappear behind the horizon or something like that?
They actually landed in the field from what it appeared to be. Because you could see them all the way until they went down. And then granted the corner or anything wasn't like it was super tall, but then they were just gone.
Okay, but you saw them standing on the ground, right?
No, then we couldn't see them anymore. They were gone.
Okay. So they came down and then they disappeared. Okay.
Yeah, there's no, and you know, that's the thing is my biggest regret is I do wish we would have gone and chased them. I mean, just gone over on Woodcock Road just to see, you know, because I think it would have answered a lot of questions for us. And when Tom said that, I thought he was going to. Well, then he decided to mix another margarita, and then it sounded like we were just staying put. But
yeah, sounds like a plan. But you shouldn't. I don't think you should chase the UFOs. You don't know.
No, there was a little fear there. I'm not gonna lie. You know, it's like, do we go and look what it was, or do we just leave them alone and probably play it safe? So nobody else really jumped at the idea of just driving over there. We just kind of joked about it, and then we didn't. So
very interesting. Is there something more to this story that you haven't told us already?
No, nothing really. It's pretty much like I was telling Dustin, I'm like, I'm not really sure what to say about it, just because it was a brief situation. And to be honest, like I didn't even post it right away after it happened because I'm like, there's got to be something explainable. Like, I'm not a huge pessimist with stuff, but like that stuff doesn't usually happen to me. I just figured that, I'd feel silly putting it on there if it's super explainable. But then I'm just like, somebody has to explain it to me. So when I posted it, then the post kind of blew up. And a lot of people said birds. A lot of people had different ideas, said parachuters, but it didn't move like
Yeah.
any kind of skydivers or parachuters. And there'd be no reason for them to come to us, middle of nowhere in Manitowoc County. Like, not at all.
But you never came back to the place where they landed, right?
I walk down that area all the time. So, I mean, I take my dog on nightly walks. So that night I didn't, but the next day I did. And I didn't notice anything different.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard to say how close to the road they actually landed, though. Perception wise, like we were looking on the map yesterday, because one thing I noticed too is that the barn is so it may have been past Woodcock Road. So it could have been something that was actually pretty far away, because there's a barn off in the distance, and it's past the road that's parallel to Tom's Road. It's just really tough to judge how far exactly away it was. So when I looked, though, I didn't really notice anything. And this is a little far-fetched. One thing I do notice, though, is like my dog goes crazy over in that area. Like, I have a husky, and she gets really wild when we're walking down that road. So there was a point in time where I actually avoided that road just because she would just get so out of control with it.
Really? That's kind of interesting.
That's really
I guess I never really put two and two together. I just thought,
because dogs can sense a lot of things that we can't.
funny part, because somebody was dumping like dead, I think they were, I don't know why, but they were dumping dead geese carcasses over there, because we have a lot of hunters, and you know what I mean, like hunters and farmers. So I think they were shooting when they weren't supposed to because it's out of season, so then they just dump them. That's really but she was more intrigued with whatever was in the field than those dead geese. So that's why I was kind of like, that's just strikes me as a little odd. But I thought maybe it was a deer area. I mean, nothing too out of the ordinary there. I didn't notice anything different, the next time I walked down it that was anything that I'd never noticed before.
That's very interesting. Dustin, do you have any more questions, or?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, maybe, do you have any other UFO stories that you know of, not personally, but maybe in the area? Like you said, when you first heard that UFO story in when you were littler, in that first town you were. Yeah. Do you know more about that case at all, or just heard word of mouth that?
I guess I'm pretty sure it was a police officer who recorded it, and I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I'm like, something like that's going to happen in my little hometown, and that's kind of located down towards, I don't know if you know where Beaver Dam is. It's that general area.
Dustin left the building. Dustin left the building. Happens.
Technology is great when it works.
But Sara, that's a great story, and it's very interesting. There's no need to feel silly about it, telling your story to somebody. It's very interesting. I'm very skeptic when it comes to all those topics. And when I was 16, I'm 42 now. And when I was 16, I seen something too. I seen a triangle in the sky, hovering in the sky, and two friends were with me, and it was very strange, and we were afraid and in fear. But it was interesting. I saw a triangle hovering in the sky and moving pretty strange. Wow. So I'm not saying it's aliens or something like that. I just tell what I saw. I saw a triangle in the sky, and back then, 1996, nobody had drones or something like that. So
right. See, that's the crazy part, is obviously it's something like completely out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
I mean, and you had your friends there too, right?
Yeah, we all seen it. And it was pretty much the only sighting I had, besides the one that I told you I had, like, when I came home from this trip and I saw those lights that kind of followed us. We were driving in the car. I was driving with a carpool, and we saw those lights in the sky, and they were like playing with each other. It was strange. Yeah.
I mean, more and more stuff like that, where it's like similarities. The triangle in the sky, I have to say, like, I would have peed myself had I seen that, because there's no question on that,
Yeah.
Like, mine was almost like, it's up to interpretation. Like, everybody had a different idea what it could be versus a triangle in the sky. Like,
yeah,
and your friend thought too would confirm. So I definitely would have thought I'd be seeing something.
No, I was gonna ask if you have any other, if you have any personal ghost stories or any other. So when I got cut off, I think you were talking about that one UFO story that in the first town that you lived in.
Yeah, the UFO story. I mean, I didn't really remember any details, but there was a police officer who actually recorded it from what I had heard, and then it was on the show Sightings. I don't think I ever got a chance to watch that, because I was just a little kid and it was past my bedtime, and mom was like, no, you can't stay up and watch. Like, sorry.
Right.
I haven't thought about it in years though, so I kind of want to search it and see if I can find it again.
Right. And Wisconsin's known for its haunted houses and haunted places. So I was just curious too if you had any of those stories.
So when I was 16, I was playing the Ouija board, and this one totally could be explainable. And it was with my friend Jenny. Like, she was my best friend growing up when we were 16. So my mom was dating a guy who lived out of town, and I asked if I could have my friend spend the night, and she said, "Yeah, sure, but you have to go to bed at a decent hour. Like, no more of this after midnight crap." So of course we were up at 2:30 in the morning. Like, we're 16. It's a weekend. We're playing the Ouija board, and then we both saw my mom had this big picture window in the living room. And we didn't see any vehicle lights pull up or anything. And this lady walked past the picture window, and there's like some like the sheer curtains that were drawn. But I mean, like, from what we both saw, it looked like she looked like almost like she had a coat on like my mom's. I mean, fairly modern. It wasn't like it was like 1800s, like, somebody spooky walking past. But the part that got us was that we're like, oh crap, she's home. So we both like hightailed it on either end of the couch and just pretended like we fell asleep with the lights on. And we heard the screen door open, but the wooden door never opened and nobody ever came in. So then we're waiting and waiting and waiting. And we're just like, okay, so where did she go? And there was nobody out there. So, I mean, whether it was somebody who just wandered off the road, but the fact, and my Jenny saw it too. Like, when we see each other, she actually moved. She lives over in Maryland now. So when we see each other, we still confirm, like, you do remember that, right? Like, we both saw her. So there was that.
Wow.
The other spooky part is actually the place that I live on. It's in Indian burial ground, kind of.
Oh,
so
shit.
Yeah, it's an uncataloged grave site back there. So they have it documented way back in like the 1800s that this guy was coming on. It was like a 19th century Native American, sorry, who this guy would appear, and he wanted to visit. His dad was buried back there, back by the building foundations. I have a bunch of old building foundations on the property. And so I'm sitting here speculating that maybe something really weird would happen. And we've only had a couple of things, never seen anything, but we had things that definitely should not be moved in certain places were moved there. Because I have the shelving in my living room, and I have this like porcelain horse, and it was sitting on my console table. And New Year's Eve last year, all of a sudden I was like, I only had like 2 people over, and we were just playing cards and stuff. And all of a sudden, I was wondering where that horse went. Here, somebody put it all the way on the top shelf of the library thing in my living room. And it was just really odd because you have to, I mean, like, you have to stand on something to get up there. And why it was up there, that's the only weird thing that's ever really happened.
Wow.
My daughter said something about a door handle once, but I wasn't there, so it didn't really personally happen to me. But she claims up and down that somebody was wiggling the door handle in a room that she was painting.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that could have been one of her friends messing with her, though, too. That's possible. I mean, teens, Maybe. It really, honestly, is entirely possible. I mean, it's an old house.
Danny's got a lot of ghost stories.
Nothing special.
I'd love to hear.
Nothing special. We live in a pretty old house, which is from 1860 something. Yeah, one day I had a podcast, and after the podcast, it was like after midnight, sometime after midnight, I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. And when I stepped into the kitchen, I turned the lights on, and I approached the sink. On the sink, there was this little knife. It was like this size, like this pen, and it was laying on the sink. When I approached the sink, the knife started turning. It just turned like, I don't know.
Was it pointing at something? Like,
didn't pay attention to what it was pointing, to be honest. That's a good question, interesting question. I don't remember.
I suppose I wouldn't have either, though. I would have been freaking out and probably wouldn't have really focused on that
screaming.
part of the moving. Yeah.
It turned like 5 or 6 centimeters, and I was like, whoa, what was that? I was looking for a mouse or something like that. Maybe I was thinking maybe there was a mouse on the sink and ran away and moved it, but there was no mouse, and the windows were closed and everything. There was no breeze or something that could turn it. It was very strange. On another occasion, I was also doing a podcast, and after the podcast, I went to the bathroom upstairs and was washing my hands, and I closed the door and I turned the key around. That's what I always do because I have kids and I want to have my peace in the bathroom. Everybody who has kids knows what I'm talking about.
I
And
hear you.
then, yeah, I was washing my hands and the door was right beside me, like a few centimeters. So washing my hands, and suddenly I saw the door handle going down, quick, and up, quick. And I was calling for my daughter. I said, Marlies, is it you? Nothing. It was pretty late though. So I opened the door. I looked outside, nobody. So I went to the child's bedroom. My daughter was laying in the bed, sleeping, deep asleep. I was looking in the room of my stepson. He was also sleeping, laying on his back in the bed and sleeping. I was looking to the master bedroom. My wife was laying in the bed, snoring, sleeping. And I said, okay, that was strange. Who moved the door handle? I was thinking about the cat. Maybe the cat jumped and pulled it down, but it was very slowly. The movement was very slowly. And if you
Oh yeah.
put it down and let go, it goes snap. So it wasn't like that. It went down and went slowly upwards again. So that was also pretty strange. And a few years back, we heard, my wife and I, we were sitting in the living room and watching some TV, and we heard steps from upstairs. We heard steps, very, yeah, hard steps. Boom, boom.
Oh my
boom,
God.
boom. I said, what's that? I told Dustin before, it was not the neighbor banging his wife or something like that. It was steps. It sounded like, or at least it sounded like steps. I'm not saying it was a ghost or I don't know. It was steps. Those were steps. And
Those steps are kind of unmistakable. Like, or
yeah,
am I saying that correctly? Unmistakable. Anyways,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, you can't mistake them. They have their own rhythm.
right. So I know the steps. So I went upstairs with the baseball bat, of course, looked in every room and there was nothing. So
Trippy.
I don't know. And then we went back to the living room and turned the TV on again and said, who knows? Then we heard the steps again. Boom, boom, boom. And then we sent the dogs upstairs. Maybe they detect something strange, but they no barking, no nothing. So I don't know. It lasted for, let's say, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't know. We heard it almost every evening and then it stopped. Suddenly it stopped. And since then there was
Always around the same time?
good question. Also a good question. I can't remember, but it was always, I would say, yeah, always at nighttime, like from 10 p.m. until 11 or something like that. Strange.
Yeah, that's kind of, did it just, I mean, like, it just suddenly stopped? All of a sudden you just never heard it again, or?
No, never heard it again. Someday it stopped and we haven't heard it. And then since then, nothing. Yeah.
That is something. You said you have dogs. Did you, I mean, I don't know if you've ever noticed anything like this. I mean, and I know dogs bark at everything, but did they ever just bark at absolutely nothing? Do you ever notice that?
No. Back then we had 2 dogs. One died. Now we have this French bulldog and he barks at everything. If you hear something outside the house, he's barking at the postman and at the kids playing outside and everybody. But he never barked in the house for no reason, no.
It's one thing I've noticed before, but I usually figure it's kind of explainable. Is the dogs will all of a sudden just become alert on something and just start barking at nothing.
Yeah.
And I have huskies. I mean, I know everybody says huskies are loud and they talk a lot, which they do, but they don't typically just bark out of nowhere. And we just got a puppy not that long ago. So it's kind of funny because like I used to question my dog's eyesight a little bit, my older husky, because she would do that, and then he's kind of alert too and wonder like if she's barking at something. I mean, it really could be another explainable thing, like, you know, I mean, whether it's an old house, so maybe you have a mouse in the house somewhere, which I wouldn't be a bit surprised, to be honest.
Yeah. I try not to think about it. I don't break my head over what it was or stuff like that. I don't know. I try not to put too much into it, too much thoughts, because I will not find out.
Poltergeist at the house. Oh man.
Who knows?